just got a new phone, so I'm afraid this video is going to have a level of visual detail that nobody ever wanted. But yeah, I thought I'd just make another video. I've been kind of noting how the pandemic has really brought out the worst in me. Like, maybe I'm not unique in that, but I've been having this new feeling over the past year where I get so angry that I want to like angry cry. Like I'm just so filled with rage that I want to just start like aggressively sobbing at someone. Um, and it just, I've been thinking about it and thinking about all the things that I get really, really mad about. And yeah, it's funny. I think in a lot of ways, I often get more mad at people who aren't like total COVID deniers. I mean, to be fair, I don't know a lot of people who are total COVID deniers, but it's like, I guess it wouldn't be right to call it the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's what it's called when, like, if you don't know anything about something, you like think that you're knowledgeable, and it's only when you know a little bit about something that you like might realize that you don't know very much about it. Um, that's not quite it, but I think there's this thing where naturally you judge things the way that you judge them, and so you think that like your judgment is objectively correct, and I think it's kind of hard to remember that that's probably not true. But yeah, I guess I just have this thing where for some reason I have like a huge amount of anger that I feel when I feel that either like someone thinks that they're being safe about COVID and like they're just not, in my opinion, or on the other hand, like, you know, when somebody is like, the type of person who's obsessed with like disinfecting surfaces, even though and again, this is me being like, well, this is just kind of what I've osmosed from like reading stuff and like watching TV. Maybe I'm just wrong. But I get the impression that catching COVID from surfaces or from like mail or packages or getting takeout just like isn't really that common. And like, on the one hand, there's like how people personally feel about it and what they personally want to do to be safe. But like, they should do whatever they want. But, when it turns into something where like people are being like really snotty about like other people not being safe, and it's like literally, the kind of stuff that people were saying early on, but they like still think it's true. Like, as soon as you get home, you should like take off all your clothes and get in the shower so you won't get COVID. And it's like, wow, okay. Um, yeah, I think the last time I made a video was right after we'd been told that we were gonna have a stay home order. I'm sure I said a lot of my thoughts about that back then, but I'm gonna do it again. This is one of the things where I can like feel myself becoming like a person that I really don't want to be, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I wish that we could build a wall around San Francisco because it just feels like we have like really strict rules. Whenever our cases start to go up, we start closing things down immediately, no matter how badly it affects businesses or people's quality of life. And even though our cases aren't up as much as other places, they have gone up like the most they've ever gone up. So we've been told that we're basically on a stay home order. I think the order was so strict at first and there was so much outcry that I guess they changed two little things. They said, well, first they said that kids can go to playgrounds, which I think is really important. But the second thing was that they previously were saying that you couldn't meet up with anyone, which is like somewhat silly since like, the risk of like spreading stuff from like walking in a park where other people are, like, it's not really different based on whether you like intentionally met up and like walked with a friend or not. So it's kind of this weird thing where it's like they're trying to police like your personal life even though like your actions are still the same. But anyway, they loosened it enough so that you are now officially allowed to meet up with one person outside. Two people can meet up. And that's like all the social interaction you're supposed to have in San Francisco with someone that's not in your household. Which I think is like a little too extreme, I guess. But the thing is, I guess something I find really frustrating with the people I know who live in other states is, you know, I know people who definitely believe COVID is real and they think that they're being safe. Um, and by the standards of where they live, everyone considers what they're doing to be safe. But like, for example, my parents will like have friends over for dinner, and like, my dad sent out this email with everybody where he's like quoting this New York Times article or something talking about like, how dangerous different activities are for COVID. And he's like, well, they're saying that meeting up with friends is like this amount of dangerous, but like I know that the way we do it is super safe because we like, we sit far away from each other or whatever. And it's like, obviously that does lessen the danger, but like, I don't know, just this idea like, oh, the way that we're meeting up and like hanging out with friends inside is like totally fine and safe. And it's just like, sorry, I sound crazy. It's just that it's kind of frustrating to me when I talk to other people and I realize that where they live, like things like indoor dining that I don't think are safe, and like things like meeting up with friends inside, which I don't think is a great idea. Like those things are totally normalized and they think they're fine, and they have more cases than we do. And then, like, meanwhile, in San Francisco, when we have a lot of cases, we're immediately told you can't see anyone and everything has to close. And it's really frustrating because it just feels like, okay, so people who live in San Francisco and don't care can just go to other places, and places that either think they're being careful but they're not being as careful as us, or places that just don't have a lot of restrictions at all. If you don't care, you can just go to another place and like have fun and do whatever you want and then just like bring it back. Or people can come into San Francisco and just bring it here. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I can't know exactly why cases are going up. But, to me, it feels like this thing where, like, everybody in San Francisco is constantly beating each other up and saying, like, oh my gosh, like, I saw you take off your mask to, like, eat a bite of a cookie, like, in public. And then, like, that's why we have, like, so many cases. And it just really seems to me that the reason we probably have so many cases is because of people coming from places that don't have a lot of restrictions. And it's not the fact that um, we've always had a lot of restrictions. It's not the fact that like our restrictions like sometimes aren't as strict as they used to be, or that somebody like ate a cookie or went for a walk with their friend or something, like, because in other places people don't have these standards of behavior at all. And even people who think that they're safe like are doing things that like people here would never do. And like I don't it gets on my nerves. I felt bad because I got really upset with a friend. Like I didn't mean to, but I just was talking to a friend who doesn't live here, and they, I know, live in a place with more cases than we have, and was just talking about how they had like had friends over to their house, and I just couldn't really believe it. Oh, so yeah, I'm just becoming like the most grumpy, rage-filled person, and it's just really frustrating because like whenever you see somebody like on TV or something taking more of a national approach and not talking about just California or San Francisco, like if I'm watching like local news, they're always like, oh, like we could really like beat this thing if we just like didn't hang out with people inside and wore masks. And it's like, guys, we've been doing that for like the entire year, but like we can't beat it because like you all aren't doing that. And it's just frustrating. I think I find it really hard with the recent stay home order because it's kind of like every time I try to carve out like a little thing that like feels kind of fun or normal or makes me feel a little bit better, it gets shut down and taken away, like my client and I were going to this local park where like a band would busk and like, they would play music and like little kids would watch them, and like, there would just be like a small amount of like spaced out people watching this band outside, and that was like a fun thing that we could do. So now because of the stay home order, like, nobody's able to go out and play music, or like, you know, I live in a downstairs room that is really dark and doesn't have a kitchen. So because I can't, you know, easily eat in restaurants or even like in a lot of outdoor areas, like that means I have to use my room, basically have to use my bathroom as a kitchen, which is really gross. And I basically just have to like eat down here in the dark, which is really depressing. And like it just the fact that there was a couple of outdoor restaurants that like worked for me to go and like eat in their outdoor seating and it wasn't that cold made such a big difference for me. And so to have that be shut down and have to go back to like eating in like my dark little room, staring at the wall and getting ants, just really sucks. And yeah, I think another source of like real anger I have is just at anybody who has a kitchen. Like, I mean, I don't know if you followed like the French Laundry controversy, but apparently French Laundry is like a really fancy, expensive restaurant in California that I obviously was not familiar with. And the mayor of San Francisco and the governor of California, both in separate incidents, apparently went to like really big fancy dinners there, which at the time were not against the COVID restrictions because it was technically outdoor dining, but it was like inside a tent. So people were like, well, that doesn't seem like the safest. And it was in like a big group of friends, so people kind of disapproved. And like at the time that this happened, I was like, oh, why don't people just lay off them? Like, it's fine if that's what they want to do. But then, like, you know, then they go and say that, like, people can't eat in restaurants at all. And it's like, I don't know, there's just something about the fact that people who are really rich, you know, might have like a deck, like, might have space to like eat outside with friends, um, just at their house. And like, even if they don't have that, they have a kitchen. Like, just the idea of being able to like eat in a kitchen and not having to like eat in my bedroom and like use my bathroom sink as like a kitchen counter, like, you know, it makes me so incredibly jealous and angry that like those people are like making the rules about how I'm supposed to live, and you know, making the rules basically that like, you know, having a place that I can eat is not like a necessity, you know. um it's just really frustrating, especially because, you know, a lot of people in California, like business owners and like restaurant workers, are getting upset because there was never that much evidence that like eating outside is that bad. And I guess I've just felt like from the beginning that we should prioritize stuff that like is low risk and like helps with people's mental health and functioning and stuff. But it seems like a lot of the time it's not really like that. Like, they'll just kind of cut out things that like they don't think are important for people but that really are. um yeah, I really was feeling sad. I think last time I made a video was like on the Friday before the Sunday that they were going to shut everything down. So on Saturday and Sunday I was doing my Christmas shopping, and I was like, I did go out to eat at like a taqueria, which was really nice, but I was just, as I was walking around in the Mission, I was walking by like all of the outdoor restaurants, and like, even though I wasn't someone who was like eating out a lot, it just like always made me feel really good. Like, it made things feel more normal to just like, when I was walking around doing errands or whatever, to just kind of see people hanging out with friends or like on dates or just having fun at restaurants. Like, seeing that out in the street, even though it might have been inconvenient, was also just kind of nice and like always made me feel better. I'm like, I'm not a very social person, but I guess like I'm a very extroverted person in the sense that I really need to see people and be around people, or I get super just like depressed. And so I don't know, like I was almost feeling more sad about like not being able to see people eating than I was about like not being able to eat in restaurants myself. And I don't know, it's just a bummer. Stuff is like so empty. What are the other things I'm mad about? I was just really just getting boiling mad over all these things I saw on social media. And like, I think I'm kind of a hypocrite. Like, because like I've said, like seeing people in person is so important to me. For some reason, if I see someone in person who's like, even if they're like on the subway or somewhere that it's like actually really important to wear a mask because there's no ventilation, like if I see somebody on the subway and their mask is like this, like I won't even really be mad at them for some reason. Like I think just because they're another human that I can see, I'm just like, oh, I love you. And, you know, a lot of the time when somebody isn't wearing a mask or isn't wearing their mask right, like I can kind of see that they're somebody who is a little confused about what's going on, like maybe somebody who has substance abuse problems, like, you know, a lot of the time they're not somebody that I really think anybody should be going and like chewing out for not wearing a mask properly because they're just confused. But you know, even people who like should know better, they're wearing those weird masks. I don't know why there's those masks that like seem to be popular where they have like just kind of this sort of like shaped nose and it just doesn't seem to go over anyone's nose. It's always like this. You know, but for some reason when I go to the taqueria and like the same like wonderful kind ladies who have been making my burritos for like the past 8 years or whatever are like making me a burrito and their mask is like this or whatever, like I'm just not mad, you know, I'm just happy to be around people. But aside from stuff in person, I'm just like in a rage about everything I see on social media. Like, you know, whether I think somebody is like being too social or whether like I just think somebody is making up like a fake problem that they think is dangerous, like getting COVID through the mail or whatever. I just end up getting really angry at people like on both ends of that spectrum. Um, I've been getting a little bit annoyed at people who are talking about the vaccine and implying that like the people who are going to be first to take the vaccine are being experimented on or something like that. Or that people should be afraid to take the vaccine because it's new, when obviously like tens of thousands of people were already took it in the tests, and that's why it's been approved, because people have already, you know, tried it. um I don't know, there's just like so many things where I just get so mad. And I think like, I guess maybe it's just the stereotypical thing people say about social media, that like the further away you are, like the easier it is to be mad, and maybe that is just it. But like, you know, I frequently will just find myself just boiling about stuff, and that's kind of why I just feel like this has brought out the worst in me. I spend so much time thinking like, oh my gosh, I have it so bad and my client has it so bad. Like, you know, I do get pretty frustrated about what I call the mask binary. I've actually wanted to write some kind of big piece of writing about this, but I also invariably feel guilty and weird thinking about how much worse stuff is for disabled people who are like institutionalized right now. You know, I almost find myself feeling like I can't say like, well, it's really bad for people that I know too out in the community, but I don't know. Anyway, the thing is, just in case you don't know, because maybe you don't know, but some people who are severely disabled just won't wear a mask. Like, I just happen to know some people like this in the community, and you don't hear from these people on social media because most of the people I know who are like this don't have really much of a communication system. They might have like a few signs, but they're not like typing on social media. And so most of the time they're not able to even explain why they can't wear a mask. But you know, I just know some people who they won't put on a mask, and like if you put a mask on their face, they will just take it off. Sorry, I feel like it sounds like I'm being vague. I want to clarify, like I'm not just talking about my client and she doesn't always struggle with this, which we're actually really lucky about, but like we know so many other people with developmental disabilities who do. And like, so there's that fact that, you know, it's not like people are like, oh, I don't believe in COVID, I don't want to wear a mask. It's that like for them, like possibly they either don't understand or they're just like really impulsive. You know, they may want to keep it on, but maybe they just can't. And because of that, there's just no chance of like these people just like going outside and like wearing a mask everywhere when they leave the house. And in San Francisco, that's basically almost what's required. So it's really frustrating because it feels like people who are in this situation are like invisible. And I don't think it would be that hard for people to acknowledge and accommodate the fact that like maybe a very small minority of people maybe like wouldn't wear masks or wouldn't wear masks all the time, and that we could still be pretty safe and keep things pretty low risk. Um, Instead, it feels like people always talk in absolutes and assume that if you don't want to wear a mask, then you must be like anti-mask, or you must like not believe in COVID or something. And it really sucks because I think most people in places where like masks are normal, like most people think of masks as like one of the like lowest effort things because you can like wear a mask and you can still go out and do all your same activities. And so I think people kind of think, okay, well, like we'll just, gradually as things get better, we'll be able to open up more and more things and we'll be able to do more and more activities, and we'll just keep wearing masks until the very end, like, in the summer or the fall or something. And it's like, it's very scary to hear that, because that means that if that's what we do, then there's some people who, when everything opens up and activities come back, they won't be able to do anything, and like everything for them will be just as bad as it was at the very beginning, because they won't be allowed anywhere. And that just super bothers me. I hope that, maybe as things get a little better with the vaccine, I hope that people will get a little more lax about masks, or like a little more understanding about people who can't wear masks. But it's really upsetting to hear, because it really reminds you how some people just don't see disabled people, especially severely disabled people, specifically people with developmental disabilities. And another thing that is very obvious to me is it's not the safest if you are a caregiver for somebody who can't talk or sign or write, and you can't see their face. You don't know if the person is in pain. You don't know if they're having a seizure. You can't just kind of look at them to like try to see how they're doing from their expression, which is very important if someone can't talk. This isn't as urgent a thing as a person not being able to wear a mask at all, but it does mean it makes it hard to take someone out, even if you know that they need to be out, because it's like there's this whole extra level of like all this extra stuff that you have to do, because you can't really know how the person is doing because you can't see their expressions. And there's the whole clear mask thing, but I never actually see clear masks for sale anywhere. I would love to try some, but I don't really see them being worn. And for people who drool, I don't really know if wearing a clear mask is gonna work. So it sucks, because these are things I worry about a lot and that I feel like are kind of invisible, even in disability spaces, like specifically because a lot of the people who are affected by that stuff like aren't actually able to participate in those spaces, which it's not the fault of those spaces, but I do think it's the fault of those spaces if they actually forget that those people exist because they can't be on Facebook. Are those all my complaints? I'm trying to remember. I've just been feeling so mad that I just feel like I'm just like boiling with anger all the time, but I'm pretty sure that was everything that I wanted to say. So yeah, basically I'm just mad all the time.